What if I told you the biggest money trap isn't your salary, but the system built around it? You work hard. Maybe you're pulling in $60,000 or $80,000, even six figures, but somehow you're still living paycheck to paycheck. You pay your rent, your bills, your credit card debt, and it never seems to end. That constant stress? That's not just bad budgeting, it's the rat race. Now here's something crazy. Let's say you make $70,000 a year and manage to save $500 every month, which is already more than most people can. You know how long it would take you to save $1 million over 166 years? That's not a retirement plan. That's a trap. Meanwhile, the wealthy play by different rules. They don't work harder. They don't save more. They buy things that make money while they sleep. They let money work for them. And here's the truth. The so-called safe path, get good grades, get a steady job, buy a house, is what keeps most people locked in the same cycle for life. Working to survive, never breaking free. But what if you flipped the script? What if your money started working for you? Let's dive into the story of Robert Kiyosaki, a man who cracked this code. Today, he's a multimillionaire investor and author. But he didn't start rich. His family worked hard but lacked crucial financial literacy, often struggling despite their efforts. How did he break free and build an $80 million fortune? The answers lie in his bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Picture young Robert growing up in Hawaii. He went to school with kids from wealthy families, kids who had the newest bikes, gadgets, and toys, but his family couldn't afford those things. So one day, he asked his dad, a well-educated man with a PhD, "Dad, how do I get rich?" His father gave the usual advice. Study hard, get good grades, and find a safe, secure job. He meant well, but over time that mindset didn't lead to wealth, only stress. That's why Robert later called him his poor dad. Not because he didn't earn money, but because he didn't know how to build lasting wealth. But Robert also had his best friend Mike's father, Rich Dad. An entrepreneur without fancy degrees, Rich Dad possessed a radically different understanding of money. He mentored the boys, sharing real-world rules of wealth building, eventually becoming one of Hawaii's wealthiest men. Rich Dad didn't just teach business tactics, he taught a different way of thinking about money. So, what was the core wisdom Rich Dad shared? It starts with one foundational principle. You must understand the difference between an asset and a liability, and relentlessly focus on acquiring assets. Sounds simple? Yet this is where most people get it wrong. The rich consistently buy assets. The poor and middle class mostly buy liabilities, thinking they're building wealth when they're really digging a deeper hole. Let's make it crystal clear. An asset puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. It's all about the direction of cash flow. Still confused? Here's a real example. You buy a brand new car for $50,000. It looks great, feels like success. But every month you're paying off a loan, insurance, maintenance, and the car's losing value the second you drive it. That's a liability. It takes money out of your pocket every single month. Now imagine instead you buy a $50,000 rental property. Someone else pays rent each month, covering the mortgage and putting extra money into your account. That's an asset. It earns for you while you sleep. Both cost $50,000. One drains you, the other pays you. That's the difference, that's the game. Now think about how most people's money flows. Their income comes from a job, but as soon as that paycheck arrives, it goes straight back out. To cover rent or a mortgage, food, gas, bills, taxes, insurance, maybe credit cards or student loans. And when you look at their finances, here's what you'll often see. Very few assets that make money, and a long list of liabilities that drain it every month. Even their biggest purchase, their home, usually acts like a liability. It demands monthly mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and constant repairs. Unless that home is generating income, like renting out a room or a basement, it's not helping you build wealth. It's quietly taking money out of your pocket. Now let's look at how the wealthy think differently. They might still have jobs or active income, but their real focus is building assets. They use their money to buy or create things that make money, even when they're not working. That's the power of passive income. Money that comes in whether you're working, sleeping, or on vacation. Think of rental properties that bring in more rent than they cost. Dividend-paying stocks or index funds. Royalties from books, music, or patents. Online courses, websites, or apps that earn money over time. Even lending money and earning interest. These are all assets, and the goal is simple. Build multiple streams of income that don't rely on your time. That's how true wealth grows. Let's go back to the two dads. Poor dad made a good salary, but every time he earned more, his expenses grew just as fast. That's called Parkinson's Law, and it traps a lot of people. He focused on job security, not building assets. And over time, his debts, like his mortgage and credit cards, just kept piling up. His money situation looked like this. His income matched his expenses. His liabilities were bigger than his assets. And because he didn't understand money, he lived with constant stress and financial pressure. Rich Dad operated differently. His focus was systematically acquiring cash-flowing assets while minimizing unnecessary liabilities. His income consistently exceeded expenses because his growing asset column generated far more cash than his minimized liability column consumed. This reveals the engine of wealth creation. Assets generate income. This income covers expenses comfortably, leaving a surplus. This surplus is reinvested into acquiring more assets. Both dads were smart. Both worked hard. The difference wasn't effort, it was mindset. Poor dad said, "Study hard so you can find a good company to work for." Rich dad said, "Study hard so you can buy or build a good company." Poor dad said, "I'm not rich because I have kids." Rich dad said, "I need to be rich because I have kids." Poor dad warned, "Play it safe, avoid risk." Rich dad taught, "Learn how to manage risk." Poor dad said, "I can't afford that." Rich dad always asked, "How can I afford that?" That one question changes everything. It turns a dead end into a challenge. It forces you to think differently, to find a way instead of giving up. Here's another key insight. Most people's money decisions are controlled by just two emotions: fear and greed. Fear of losing your job, fear of going broke, fear of not having enough keeps people stuck. They cling to their jobs for a sense of safety. Then, once the paycheck hits, greed kicks in. Or maybe you call it desire, the urge for comfort, status, new stuff. So they spend. But the joy doesn't last. The money runs out, and fear returns, stronger than before. So the cycle repeats. Fear, work, pay, spend, worry, over and over again. Instead of stepping back and asking, "How do I break this cycle?" most people just chase a bigger paycheck, which leads to even bigger expenses. It's an emotional trap, and it keeps millions locked in the rat race. Rich Dad believed the obsession with higher education often comes from fear and desire. Fear of not earning enough and desire for status or security. Education is important, but school rarely teaches how money really works. And without that knowledge, most people stay stuck. They work harder just to keep spending, trapped in a cycle of fear, greed, and paychecks. Rich Dad's advice was clear. Use your emotions to think. Don't let emotions control your thinking. Emotional thinking sounds like, "I need that raise," or "I deserve this splurge." Strategic thinking asks, "Is this helping me build wealth? Is this job growing my future, or just my boss's?" It's about stepping back and seeing the bigger picture. Here's the real difference. For most people, their job is their only source of income. Their whole financial future depends on it. But for the wealthy, it's their assets that create income and give them freedom. So what's the takeaway? Mind your own business. That doesn't mean you need to quit your job tomorrow. It means start building something outside your job, something that puts money in your pocket even when you're not working. Use your job to pay the bills and to fund your future. But your real wealth, that comes from the assets you build. Kiyosaki started as a salesman, but used his income to buy rental properties. Over time, his passive income passed his paycheck, and that gave him freedom. He says, "Treat every dollar you invest like an employee of yours, and this employee works for you 24/7. Whether it's index funds, rental properties, or a side hustle, the goal is the same. Keep feeding your asset column and let it grow." This requires discipline, patience, financial education, and a long-term perspective. It's not about getting rich quick. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with money and work. Real wealth isn't just about a number in your bank account. It's about freedom. Freedom to choose how you spend your time. Freedom to stop working when you want, not when you have to. If you stop working today, how long could you stay afloat? When you shift your focus from just earning to building income-producing assets, that answer begins to change. Because one day your money won't just sit there. It'll be working for you. That's what escaping the rat race really means. If this video helped open your eyes, hit like, subscribe, and stick around. We've got more powerful lessons on the way.